Tom, we have a question from one of our Patreon subscribers, Casey, and he says, I've heard you talk about mathematics and how it's not actually required for a complete formal description of reality. I think this idea may be linked to ideas in philosophy too, like, for example, Leibniz had this concept of a universal calculus, which was an imagined language that could express mathematical, scientific, and metaphysical concepts. Can you expand on this idea?
I guess in a word, yes. Yes. They're all of that is similar. Leibniz was a very brilliant man. They called people like him polymath. They were good at many, many things. They were exceptional at many, many things. And he was one of those that was exceptional. And that is true. Science, for instance, doesn't turn around mathematics. Science turns around logic. Mathematics is simply the logic of quantity. 2 is a quantity. 6 is a quantity. 2 plus 6 is 8. Well, that's mathematics. Okay, but it's the logic of quantity. That's it. But there's also the logic of quality, the logic of love, the logic of caring and sharing and trust. And all those things have their own logic in them. For instance, if you're very fearful, then you don't have trust. It's all about you. The more self-centered you are, the less capable you are of trust. The more self-centered you are, the less capable you are at love. So if you're a terribly self-centered person, you may love another just as much as you can, but that as much as you can is only a very small amount because you just don't have the capacity for love because you have too much fear, too much self-centeredness. So there's a logic to love and caring and growth and making good choices. It's not the logic of quantity, though. It's not about how many. That's quantity. It's about the quality. It's about the entropy. It's about things other than quantity. So quantity isn't the only variable in the universe. So mathematics only talks to the logic of quantity, nothing else. That leaves a whole lot out. Matter of fact, that leaves out almost everything important. Quantity's nice because you need to count your money. You need to, drive so many miles to get to where you're going. Quantity in our virtual reality we call the physical universe is very important. Quantity is what generally makes up that world. It's all about quantity. Quantity is how much does it weigh? How dense is it? These are all quantity things. So it's a world based on quantity. So in that physical world, quantity probably holds sway. It's probably the most dominant logic that gets used, but it's not the only logic that gets used. And in the world of consciousness, rather than the physical world or the virtual world, in the world of consciousness, quantity doesn't play much at all. It's a very weak player in the world of consciousness. Quantity means very little, has very little stature, and does very little good in that world of consciousness. It's about the quality of your consciousness. It's about entropy that you've the level that you have been able to obtain. It's all about the quality of your choices, not how many choices you make. Oh, I made 10,000 choices today. So what? It doesn't make any difference at all. If you made just one good one, that's something, we'll give you a gold star. But if you just made 1,000 choices, means nothing. Quantity isn't important at all. Quality is important. What's the quality of that choice that you made? That's significant. So when you talk about reality, what is reality? And you realize that consciousness is the fundamental reality. And our physical universe is a derived reality, a computed reality from consciousness, then you start to see that the quality side of the equation is really the bigger side. All of the things in our life that are important, like love and truth and justice, all the things that are significant, like relationship between spouses, between lovers, between children and their parents, between little boys and their dogs, all of it, all of these relationships are not about quantity at all. The quantity is off on the sidelines. Everything that's really meaningful to us is all about the quality. So to say that science is only about quantity, well, that's the same thing as saying science is only about the virtual reality rule set. Well, that's just one sliver, one tiny little sliver. That's an experiential space created for people to make choices in. And because of the choices, grow up. The bigger world is the world of consciousness. That's the source world. And that is a world in where quantity plays almost not at all. It's all about quality. And that's the larger world, the most meaningful world. So if we look at our sense of reality, you have to take in both worlds, the objective world and the subjective world. The subjective world turns on quality. The objective world turns on quantity. So we have this idea that all science and all thoughts and all meaningful things all have to be expressed in terms of quantities of some sort. And if they're not physical, then they don't exist and they're merely hallucinations. Well, that's like the ostrich sticking its head in the sand and thinking it's invisible now. It's not invisible at all. It's just a dumb bird with its head in the sand, not aware of what's about to bite it. So that's the way this is. The larger world, the more important world, is not about quantity. And that is the source of our existence. It's the source of why we're here, what we're doing, what the point is. All of those things are not measured in quantity. They're all measured in quality. How are we doing in meeting what we're supposed to be doing here, and doing that? That's all about the quality of our consciousness, not about how many brain cells you have is irrelevant. There are no brain cells, actually. That's all just computed when necessary. So that's kind of the big difference. Science is hung up on materialism, that if it isn't physical, it doesn't exist or it isn't important. That's not true. What's most important in our lives is not physical. And the physical part is just that one experience space that we live in. There's so much more to our life and our existence than that one physical space. So yes, there are lots of other places that are logical. The world of consciousness is not a chaotic place or a random place. It's all very logical. All of these things that are subjective have their own logic. The choice making, the lowering of entry, the getting rid of fear. These are all logical steps that you make in the process of growing up. So science actually turns on logic, not on mathematics, because science is supposed to be about reality, not just the physical part of reality, but you have to look at the consciousness part, the experiential part, the subjective part of reality. And if you have a true science of reality, then it has to take in both of those. It has to explain what's in the objective side. It has to be a better physics for the objective world, but it also has to explain all the things on the subjective side and be a logical, a logical description. You can say even a logical physics of the non-physical, of the world of consciousness. Consciousness, I just call it non-physical because that's what it looks like from the viewpoint of being in the virtual reality that seems physical. So this is the other than that virtual reality. There's a lot of other virtual realities that aren't so physical. So yes, lots of logic in both the objective and the subjective. They follow their own logic, all of these things. It's not random. It's not chaotic. It's very meaningful and very significant. So we look at just the one little part of it, that is the objective part of this virtual reality we call the physical universe. And that's such a tiny speck in the whole scheme of being and reality that, to think that that's all there is and that's the whole thing is really a shame, because, it's like, growing up in a lovely place and never going outside. It's like you're stuck in your house. All right, you were born in the house, you lived in your house, you've never been outside, there are no windows, you just stay in your house all the time. That's kind of the way it is with materialists. They've got this material house they live in, and they've never been outside. And they believe that the whole house is all the world there is. And that if they were to somehow get outside of the house, they would be dead or nowhere, couldn't exist anymore, that all of existence is just inside that house. And they're just very, very wrong. There's a lot of existence on the other side of that wall. You just have to learn how to go there and get there and train it and grow it and hone it and educate it, just like you did in the physical side. You weren't born a genius on the physical side. You had to figure things out a little bit at a time. Most of us go to school like 10 or 12 years before we go out into the world and try to function. And if you don't ever have that education, then you're very limited as what you can do in that world. So it's the same way here. It takes time to develop and hone your intuitive side rather than your intellectual side. Your intellectual side, it slices and dices and parses and judges and analyzes all the material things. But that's not where the action is. The action's over on the intuitive side. That's where the real meaning lies. So he's quite right. Leibniz was a brilliant man, and he saw a bigger picture. And in that bigger picture, he included things other than physical as being important. And what he said was that all of those things follow their own logic. None of it's chaotic. All of it is by design. All of it is well thought out. And we can experience both sides of that, the intuitive side and the intellectual side. And eventually those two learn to work together. And you can take your intellect over to the intuitive side, but you just don't use it to judge and analyze and compare. You let all that stuff go, but you can use it to direct and to wonder and to come up with ideas and strategies, but you don't use it to feed your ego, to make comparisons. Well, how am I doing? Am I going to get an A today, or am I going to get an F? All of that's very self-referential and has to do with your ego and your fear. And in as much as that intellect is wrapped around your ego and fear, it gets in the way. In so much as that intellect has nothing to do with your ego or fear, then you can use it. So it's not that the intellect is banished from the intuitive realm. It's just that a fearful intellect is destructive in the intuitive world and tends to end your sessions in the intuitive world. So that's that's kind of the truth behind the story of, yes, reality is much bigger than just the physical, but the science guys haven't figured that out yet. They still are locked in the house that they were born in and have never gotten outside. And they believe very, very firmly, almost fanatically, that there is nothing outside the house. So you can imagine what that does. It makes your life very, well, sterile. It makes your life very plain vanilla is not the right thing. Plain vanilla sounds delicious. It makes your life just uninteresting, repetitive. And after about 50 years, you start thinking, I'm kind of done here. I've done all the things I know how to do. I've experienced it all, been there, done that. And you start to get jaded and you start to get crabby and see what's wrong with everything. And a lot of people follow that path because living without the intuitive side, without the connection to who and what you are, becomes a sterile kind of uninteresting thing after you've done all the gee whiz stuff, done everything you can think of at least 2 or 3 times. Then there's not so much that is exciting anymore, and you tend to find life to be a bit of a burden. And over on the other side, in consciousness, life is always a lot of fun. It's all about fun. Fun is what drives it for the most part. So it's a different kind of world, and you never outgrow it. I think we, on the intellectual side, our whole culture lives on the intellectual side, but we go through stages, is what the psychologists would tell you. We're young, and when we're young, we are kind of foolish, and we don't take things seriously. We kind of live to play. And when we have to get serious and actually do work, we don't like it. We rebel from that. Pick up your clothes, put them away. No, I don't want to. It's that sort of thing. So we rebel from work and order. We live in kind of a fun world of play. And then we grow up and we're supposed to put that aside. Those are children things. You need to be more serious. You need to do this and take this seriously and that seriously. And you have to get some skills so you can get a job, so you can earn money and then spend it on all the things you want but don't need. You kind of go that route. And we learn to let go of that fun that we had, that play. But it doesn't actually work like that. Letting go of that inner child, and let that inner child kind of disappear from you, is not really what happens. All we do is suppress it. We still have it. It's still in there. We just suppress it. And when we grow up and get rid of that fear, often that inner child is right in there, alive and well and happy and smiling and cracking jokes and just as much fun as it ever was. So it's the same way with the brain works. You look at a brain and they'll say, well, you got the frontal cortex, and that's modern. But besides that, you've got this brain stem, and you got the reptilian part, and you got the fear part, and you got this and that. And they say, well, that brain evolved. And the old part of the brain is the brain stem, and that evolved long time ago. And then as we had more and more experiences and a broader view, then other parts of the brain developed. And pretty soon, after millions and millions of years of evolution, we've end up with the brain we have. But they see, what is it, like 5 different brains that have kind of, one has glommed onto the next, and then they grow out something else to deal with a more complex life, and so on. So we see all these subsets from the cognitive part that we associate with thinking humans, all the way down to the reptile brain that is nothing but our automatic responses to things, to danger, to other things. So it's the same way with our personalities. That inner child that you have is still in there. It's a part of you. It's a core part of you. You've just don't pay any attention to it anymore. It doesn't. You don't express it anymore. You put it down because it's not cool to act like a child when you're 50 years old, and you act like you're 6 years old. That's stupid. You're just acting stupid, laughing, rolling around on the floor, having a good time. You're 50 years old. You shouldn't do that. But that's not the case. That's just our society that is trying so hard to be something it isn't. We are consciousness. Consciousness is fundamental, and consciousness is awareness. And that awareness is aware of fun. It's aware of work too. It's aware of having to get the job done. But all those fun parts are still in there, just waiting for an opportunity to express themselves. And mostly they never do again. We shut them off by the time we're 10, 12, 15, 16, 20, 30. We keep shutting more and more of it off. But We become sullen old people with sour looks on our faces. It's sad because that little child is still there, just like your reptilian brain is still there, still driving forces underneath everything else. And it's just wonderful to connect with it and just let that child run free. Let it giggle, let it laugh, let it jump up and down, and don't be so worried about what other people think. That's their business and their problem. That's another thing about the inside world versus the outside world. That inside world is still alive and well. All that doesn't go away and get thrown out because you become more frightened and more what, in a rut of the way you think and the way you feel, and you become tied down with beliefs. You can't think about this anymore because you already have a belief that throws that out. So you can't go there. So you limit yourself off, and pretty soon you're kind of the sad, limited character that can't do anything but complain. And that's sad. You ought to be able to giggle and to laugh and to have fun, as well as be serious and think big, serious thoughts and think silly, crazy thoughts at the same time. It's we're all in there, and there's time in a day or in a week for all of those to come out to the front and show themselves. But our culture doesn't like to see a 50-year-old act like a 15-year-old. Oh, that's bad. He's being foolish and immature. But immature is not measured by behavior. People can act nicely and behave nicely and be horrible people underneath that very well-behaved exterior. Maturity has nothing to do with how old you are and nothing to do with how well-behaved you are or how well you act. It has to do with your quality, how much fear you have, the quality of your consciousness. That's what maturity is. It's how much have you outgrown your self-centeredness? How much is it about other and not about self? That's maturity. And you can have that maturity develop to a high level and still giggle like an 8-year-old. It's not like one is, one prevents the other. It's not like that. The quality you get not only allows, but encourages you to play and have fun and make life just a delight in every day. It's a great thing to kind of recall all of that in your life and to be able to be just that natural child and a natural adult all at the same time. Not have to turn one on and the other off, but just to be all of it all the time. But it's hard in our society because we criticize people who are like that. But one day our society will learn that that's a good thing. Fun is good, not something you cover up because you're too mature and serious. Fun is really a very wonderful part of your life. And when you stop trying to control the world, you can have a whole lot more fun in it. As long as you're trying to control the world, nothing's fun. Everything's work. But once you give up trying to control the world, then there's a lot of fun to be had. So I don't know exactly where that fits in, but it just seemed like a
It's good.
natural
Yeah.
space to go in.
Thank you for expanding on Casey's idea, which of course led to your concept of consciousness is fundamental. And by expanding on it the way you did, you brought in some new highlights to that. Very well. Thank you, Tom. You have more power than you think. Hi, this is Donna from MBT Events. I have had the privilege to work with Tom Campbell for nearly 20 years now, and I can tell you from the feedback received through all those years that he has improved and changed thousands of lives with his My Big Toe theory. As a physicist and explorer of the larger reality, Tom has developed a program where you can learn to access and develop your natural ability as consciousness. His expertly crafted binaural beats are included. Details are in the description below. Thank you.
I and MBT Events hope you like this video. If you do, then you should consider being a Patreon member, because Patreon members get early access to our special content. You will also be able to get your questions answered by me in special Q&A sessions, and most importantly, your contribution as a patron member will enable us to produce the content that you're looking for. So thank you.